Welcome to English Plus Podcast. I'm your host, Danny, and today we're embarking on a remarkable journey in our series, Piece by Piece, a 24-step journey to global harmony. Our focus? Education for empathy, cultivating compassion through learning. Now, when you hear the word empathy, what springs to mind? Is it a scene from a movie where the hero feels the pain of others? Or maybe it's that time your friend really understood what you were going through with your cat, Mr. Whiskers. Well, empathy is all that and so much more. It's understanding and sharing the feelings of others, and it is a crucial ingredient in the recipe for global harmony. Let's start with a story. Imagine two kids in a playground. One falls and scrapes their knee. The other, instead of laughing or running away, stops and says, "Ouch, that must hurt. Do you need help?" This simple act of understanding and sharing feelings is empathy in action. Now imagine this on a global scale. Countries understanding other countries' struggles and needs. That's the heart of our discussion today. Empathy in education isn't just about teaching kids to be nice. It's about building a foundation for a more compassionate world. It's like building a house. You start with a base. Empathy is the base upon which we can build a world where people understand and care for each other despite their differences. But how do we integrate empathy into education? It's not like there's a magic wand to wave and poof, empathetic kids. It is a process, one that involves teaching children to recognize their own emotions and those of others. It's about fostering an environment where children learn to listen, not just with their ears, but with their hearts. Now let's talk about emotional intelligence. It's a term that's been buzzing around like a bee in a bonnet. Emotional intelligence is understanding, using, and managing our own emotions in positive ways. It helps us communicate effectively, empathize with others, overcome challenges, and diffuse conflict. Imagine a world leader with high emotional intelligence. World peace wouldn't be just a slogan on a beauty pageant. It could be a reality. Here's where it gets really interesting. Studies have shown that empathy in education can lead to reduced bullying, greater inclusivity, and better learning outcomes. It's like hitting the jackpot in the casino of life skills. Now, let's pivot to practical strategies. Role-playing, for instance, is a fantastic way to teach empathy. It's like stepping into someone else's shoes, but without the worry of foot odor. Through role-playing, students can experience different perspectives, understand diverse viewpoints, and develop a sense of empathy. Another strategy is through literature and storytelling. When students read about characters from different backgrounds and experiences, they begin to understand and empathize with people who are different from them. It's like traveling the world without leaving the classroom. But empathy isn't just for the young ones. It's a lifelong journey. As adults, we too can continue to cultivate empathy. It could be as simple as having a conversation with someone from a different background, or as challenging as volunteering in a community different from our own. In conclusion, educating for empathy is not just an academic exercise. It's a critical step towards global harmony. It's about understanding that every person has a story, every nation has a history, and every heart has feelings. By cultivating compassion through learning, we're not just educating minds, we're healing the world, one empathetic heart at a time. Remember, in the words of Atticus Finch from To Kill a Mockingbird, you never really understand a person until you consider things from his point of view, until you climb into his skin and walk around in it. Let's keep walking in empathy, one step at a time. Well, that was just the beginning of our episode today. We still have a lot to cover. We will talk about some keywords, action points, and common questions and misconceptions related to our topic in today's episode. We will talk about the keywords next, so don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. In the world of language and learning, certain words and phrases often take center stage, painting a vivid picture of the topic at hand. Today, we delve into the realm of empathy and education, exploring 10 key terms that emerged as pivotal in our discussion on education for empathy, cultivating compassion through learning in the English Plus podcast. Firstly, empathy itself. Empathy itself stands as the cornerstone of our conversation. In the broadest sense, empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. It's like walking in someone else's shoes, feeling what they feel. In the context of our discussion, empathy is not just a personal trait, but a skill to be cultivated through education, forming the foundation of a more compassionate and harmonious world. And then we have global harmony. It's another significant term that refers to a state of peace and understanding among nations and peoples worldwide. It's the ultimate goal of fostering empathy through education, aiming to create a world where differences are respected and conflicts are resolved through mutual understanding. The phrase emotional intelligence, often abbreviated as EQ, refers to the ability to recognize, understand, and manage our own emotions, as well as to recognize and influence the emotions of others. In our podcast, we highlighted its critical role in building empathy, suggesting that emotionally intelligent individuals can contribute significantly to global harmony. Then there's compassion, closely related to empathy, but with an added element of a desire to alleviate others' suffering. In the educational context, teaching compassion involves not just understanding how others feel, but also fostering a willingness to help and support them. Interpersonal skills encompass the abilities required to communicate and interact effectively with others. These skills are crucial in education for empathy as they enable students to engage with diverse perspectives and understand different viewpoints. Another key phrase, empathetic communication, involves understanding others' feelings and perspectives and responding appropriately. It's a vital component of empathy education, encouraging students to listen actively and respond with sensitivity and awareness. Role-playing emerged as a practical strategy in teaching empathy. It involves acting out scenarios to understand different perspectives, helping students develop empathy by experiencing situations from other viewpoints. Lifelong learning is the concept that learning and education are continuous processes that extend beyond formal schooling. In the context of empathy, it emphasizes that developing and practicing empathy is an ongoing journey, not confined to childhood or the classroom. Reduced bullying and greater inclusivity are outcomes of empathy education. By teaching empathy, schools can create environments where bullying is less prevalent and inclusivity is enhanced, fostering a sense of belonging and respect for all students. And lastly, learning outcomes refer to the measurable results of education. When empathy is integrated into the curriculum, learning outcomes can include not only academic achievements, but also the development of social and emotional skills. These terms and phrases form the backbone of our discussion on the English Plus podcast. They highlight the profound impact that educating for empathy can have on individuals and, by extension, on global society. By understanding and integrating these concepts, educators and learners alike can contribute to a more empathetic, compassionate, and harmonious world. And now that we have talked about the keywords in our episode today, let's shift our attention to some action points we can and should consider in order to make what we talked about more than just a talk. That's coming next, so don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. In the journey we embarked upon in the English Plus podcast discussing education for empathy, cultivating compassion through learning, we unearthed a treasure trove of insights. These insights not only deepen our understanding, but also guide us toward actionable steps in our personal and collective quests for a more empathetic and harmonious world. One of the most significant lessons gleaned from our conversation is the pivotal role of empathy in education. It's not just a nice-to-have attribute or a must-have skill for the holistic development of individuals and societies. Educators and parents alike are called upon to actively integrate empathy into their teaching methodologies. This integration can take many forms, from including literature that showcases diverse perspectives to encouraging classroom discussions that foster understanding and acceptance of different viewpoints. Another crucial action point is the development of emotional intelligence. This skill goes hand in hand with empathy. By teaching children and reminding ourselves as adults to be aware of and manage our emotions, we are laying the groundwork for more empathetic interactions. This awareness is not just about understanding our own emotions, but also about recognizing and respecting the emotions of others, leading to a more effective and compassionate communication. Role-playing emerges as a powerful tool in this educational endeavor. By stepping into another's shoes, students and adults alike can gain insights into different perspectives, thereby nurturing a more profound sense of empathy. This practice, whether in a classroom or a workplace, can significantly contribute to reducing misunderstandings and conflicts. Lifelong learning is another essential lesson. Empathy isn't a one-time lesson, but a continuous journey. As individuals and communities, we must remain committed to learning about and understanding each other, transcending boundaries of culture, race, and nationality. This commitment to ongoing learning and adaptation is critical in a world that is constantly evolving and becoming increasingly interconnected. Moreover, empathy education is shown to lead to tangible positive outcomes like reduced bullying and greater inclusivity in schools. These outcomes remind us of the transformative power of empathy in creating safer and more welcoming environments for everyone. By emphasizing these positive behaviors from a young age, we are setting the stage for a future generation that values and practices empathy as second nature. Lastly, the discussion on empathy education points us towards the broader goal of global harmony. In a world often rife with conflict and misunderstanding, empathy stands as a beacon of hope. It teaches us that despite our many differences, we share common human emotions and experiences. By fostering empathy, we are not just educating individuals. We are building bridges between diverse communities and nations, paving the way for a more peaceful and harmonious world. Thus, from our exploration on the podcast, it's clear that the journey to cultivating empathy through education is not just an academic pursuit, but a practical and essential path to a better world. It's a path that requires commitment, creativity, and above all, a willingness to understand and feel with others. This path, though challenging, promises a future where empathy and compassion are the norms, guiding us towards a more harmonious global society. And now we have reached the final segment of our episode for today, where we answer commonly asked questions and debunk some misconceptions. Let's do that next. Stay with me. I'll be right back. In the aftermath of our deep dive into education for empathy, cultivating compassion through learning on the English Plus podcast, a myriad of questions and misconceptions still hover in the minds of our listeners. Let's address some of these, expanding our understanding of empathy in education and dispelling common myths. One question often raised is about the age at which empathy education should begin. Is there a right age to start teaching empathy? Well, the answer is both simple and complex. Empathy, much like language, can and should be nurtured from an early age. Toddlers as young as 2 can start learning about empathy through simple actions like sharing and understanding emotions. However, the complexity of the lessons should evolve as the child grows. It's a continuous process, adaptable to different developmental stages. Another frequent inquiry concerns the measurability of empathy. How do we know if empathy education is effective? Well, measuring empathy can indeed be challenging as it's a qualitative trait. However, There are indicators such as improved social interactions, reduced instances of bullying, and increased inclusivity and understanding among students. Surveys, observations, and self-reports can also provide valuable insights into the effectiveness of empathy education programs. A common misconception revolves around empathy being an inherent trait, one that cannot be taught. Well, while it's true that some individuals may naturally exhibit higher levels of empathy, research shows that empathy can indeed be developed and strengthened through education and practice. It's not an exclusive gift, it's a skill that can be nurtured. So make no mistake about it, it's not just something you have it or you don't. It is definitely something that you can nurture, you can work on. Anybody can work on at any age. Now, of course, it's best to work on it at an early age, but it can be worked on even at any age. And now let's turn our attention to another question. There's the question of empathy's place in the curriculum. Should it be a standalone subject or integrated into existing subjects? Well, the integration of empathy into the broader curriculum is often more effective than treating it as a separate subject. Embedding empathy in subjects like literature, history, and social studies allows for a more holistic approach, making empathy a part of the learning experience rather than an add-on. And there's the concern about empathy leading to emotional burnout. That's another valid point raised by skeptics. Can too much empathy be harmful? And I'm not saying it's not a valid point, it is. But empathy, when balanced with self-awareness and self-care, does not necessarily lead to emotional burnout. It's crucial to teach children and adults alike to recognize and manage their own emotions when practicing empathy. This balance is key to maintaining emotional health. Well, that might sound a little bit challenging and a lot of work, and for what? Well, trust me, the results are great. And it's worth taking the trouble nurturing empathy in our kids, our students, and ourselves. Now for another question. How about empathy in technology? In a world increasingly dominated by screens, is technology a barrier to empathy? Now, while excessive screen time can hinder face-to-face interactions, technology, when used responsibly, can also be a tool for fostering empathy. Online platforms can expose individuals to diverse perspectives and cultures, broadening their understanding and empathy. And here I would like to point out, some people tend to be either with something 100% or against something 100%. Of course, we will talk more about that in the episodes to come in our series, but just let me point out, just try for once not being 100% for or against something. When you do that, you will activate some senses in yourself that you didn't know existed before. You'll be able to listen better. You'll be able to see more things. And then you can continue supporting whatever you want. But anyway, we will definitely talk about that later down the line in our series. Now let's continue with our questions. Is empathy education just a trend? Well, some people say that. They just say it's just a trend and it's a fad. People are talking about it right now, but it will be forgotten in the future. Well, that's definitely not the case. Far from being just a fleeting educational trend, empathy is increasingly recognized as a fundamental component of a well-rounded education. In a rapidly changing, globalized world, the ability to understand and relate to others is more important than ever. So no, it's not a trend. And a query often posited is about the role of parents in empathy education. Should empathy education be solely the responsibility of schools? Absolutely not. Parents and families play a crucial role in nurturing empathy. The lessons learned at school are reinforced and expanded at home through daily interactions and conversations. So, what about cultural differences in empathy education? Is empathy taught differently across cultures? Well, to that I say definitely. Cultural contexts can influence how empathy is taught and expressed. However, the core concept of understanding and sharing the feelings of others remains universal. The approach might differ, but the goal is definitely the same. And there's the question of empathy and leadership. Can empathy really make a difference in leadership? Well, empathy in leadership is not just beneficial, it's transformative. Empathetic leaders are more effective because they understand and relate to the needs, motivations, and challenges of those they lead. This understanding fosters a more cooperative and productive environment. In businesses, schools, or governments, leaders who practice empathy are likely to inspire loyalty, encourage open communication, and drive more effective teamwork. A common misconception is that empathy in leadership shows weakness. Well, in contrast, it's a strength. Empathetic leaders are adept at navigating complex social dynamics and are often more adept at conflict resolution. They create a workplace culture where employees feel valued and understood, leading to a higher job satisfaction and productivity. Another question that often surfaces is about the balance between empathy and discipline in educational settings. Can teachers be empathetic and still maintain discipline? Well, the answer lies in understanding that empathy doesn't equate to leniency. Empathetic educators can enforce rules and maintain discipline while understanding and considering the feelings and backgrounds of their students. It's not just one thing or the other. They can simply do both. This balanced approach often leads to a more respectful and effective learning environment. And we come to the role of empathy in tackling global issues, which is also a point of curiosity. Can empathy really contribute to solving global problems like poverty, conflict, and environmental crises? Well, to that, I definitely answer yes. Empathy broadens our understanding and concern for people and situations beyond our immediate surroundings. It can drive actions and policies that address global issues, fostering a sense of global citizenship and responsibility. Now, the funny thing about this is that everybody takes that for granted in the world of business. Now, when you say that in order to serve your customers better, you have to understand them better, nobody raises a question. And everybody says, yeah, that's logic. But when it comes to global conflicts and when it comes to leadership, global leadership, they are skeptical about it. How come? I mean, in business, when you understand your customers, you will be able to provide better services or products, and definitely you will make more profits. It makes sense. Why can't that make sense in politics as well? Anyway, let's go back to some more questions. There's also intrigue about the relationship between empathy and creativity. Does empathy enhance creativity? Well, empathy can indeed fuel creativity. By understanding diverse perspectives and experiences, individuals can think more broadly and come up with more innovative solutions to problems. Empathy broadens the mind, which in turn can broaden creative horizons. And finally, a question arises about empathy and emotional resilience. Does teaching empathy make individuals more emotionally resilient? Well, empathy contributes to emotional resilience by enhancing emotional intelligence. Understanding and managing emotions, both one's own and others, builds a foundation for coping with challenges and setbacks in a healthy and constructive way. In summary, empathy, far from being a soft skill or a nice-to-have attribute, is a critical component of effective education, leadership, and global citizenship. Its impact is profound and far-reaching, offering solutions to personal, societal, and global challenges. As we continue to navigate a complex and ever-changing world, the cultivation of empathy remains not just relevant, but essential. As we draw the curtains on today's enlightening episode of English Plus Podcast, I want to leave you with a powerful call to action. This isn't just about absorbing information, it's about transforming insights into actions. Take the empathy we've discussed today beyond just a concept. Make it a living, breathing part of your daily life. Start small, listen more, understand deeper, and extend your hand in compassion wherever you go. Your journey towards fostering empathy could be the pebble that creates ripples of change in our world. And remember, you're not just a listener, you're a part of the English Plus Podcast family. By following our podcast and sharing it with your family and friends, you're spreading more than just words. You're spreading knowledge and empathy. Each share, each conversation ignited contributes to a more understanding and connected world. But why stop there? If you find value in our show and want to dive deeper, consider becoming a patron on Patreon. Your support not only keeps this podcast thriving, but also unlocks a treasure trove of premium episodes for you. It's a win-win. You get more of the content you love, and you help us continue our mission of enlightening and educating. To all our listeners, thank you. Thank you for your time, your eagerness to learn, and your commitment to making the world a better place. Your support means the world to us, and we can't wait to continue this journey with you, one episode at a time. Until next time, keep learning, keep empathizing, and keep sharing English Plus Podcast.